important article. So here the important article is from the Hindu, an electoral pivot that restores the Brazil's democracy. Brazil is a country in South America. So we are going to discuss regarding the Brazil's what are the challenges that Brazil facing nowadays. So let's start our discussion. In the presidential election in Brazil on October 30, the second round, the two-time former president and the leader of the leftist Worker Party, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, universally known as Lula, defeated the far-right incumbent president Jair Bolsonaro. So what happens? The two-time president Lula defeated Jair Bolsonaro, and Lula is from the leftist Workers' Party. The election could not have been more pivotal or more consequential, nothing less than a referendum on democracy. The election that happened is just like a referendum on democracy, but not that kind of proper referendum. Mr. Lula's will bring to an end the right-wing populist who has relentlessly attacked democratic institutions. So Ms. Lula's wins is a sign that that he defeated Jair Bolsonaro, who belonged from the right-wing populist, and continuously attacked the democratic institution. Reviled in misogyny and homophobia, celebrated the gun culture, demonized Brazil's slum dwellers as criminals and drug traffickers, and accelerated the burning of the Amazon. Okay, so it here giving the things that during the time of Jair Bolsonaro happened. What happened that there was a gun culture, and they designated like slum dwellers as the criminals and drug traffickers, and the burning of the Amazon. What Amazon? Amazon is a forest area in Brazil, and it is very important for the environment and very important biodiversity for the Brazil and for whole of the world. Now, there's a little doubt that the second term of the Bolsonaro could have been accentuated the authoritarian turn. And if the people were in doubt that if the Bolsonaro will come next, then definitely it will be it may be the authoritarian government with a deepening reliance on the military to run the government. The ongoing politicization of Brazil's once robust federal bureaucracy, the packing of the Supreme Court, and the erosion of the civil liberties at the hands of federal police force beholden to Mr. Bolsonaro. So what is given over here, the scenario regarding the Jair Bolsonaro was not good. There was erosion of the civil liberties and many of the things that we have studied over here, that what kind of culture was there, and the things were not good as he demonized the Brazil slum dwellers as criminals and drug traffickers, and did little and did nothing for the Amazon. Fine. So this is the whole para what is given over here, like who win the election and who came, and is a comparison among the Jair Bolsonaro and the new president Mr. Lula. So this is the basic point. Now come to the next para over here. The electoral pivot brings back a center-left party that presided over an era of dramatic poverty reduction and expanded social rights from 2003 and 2014. 2003 to 2014. So Mr. Lula's government, it came before, but it is a center-left party, and during his time there was a dramatic poverty reduction and expanded social rights. Okay. Now come over here. It brings back a coalition of Brazil's large and disproportionately black class of laboring class women who supported Mr. Lula overwhelmingly in what is still deeply a patriarchal society, and progressive elements of the middle class. So during his time, laboring class supporting her, women supporting Mr. Lula. So these are the two kind of people who supported him. It promises to usher back in policies that favor the moderate redistribution, and we are going to discuss regarding the promises that what he is promising to the people, like the moderate distribution of the commitment, like the favor moderate distribution and a commitment to deepening the social rights and environmental protection, including the Amazon forest. But maybe most decisively, Mr. Lula's return bring back a leader and a party that played a historic role in consolidating Brazil's democracy. So Mr. Lula's time, there was some kind of good things happened. So now he played a very historic role in consolidating the Brazil's democracy. And nowadays we are living in kind of world where the democratic country is very much important. Now read over here, next para. Mr. Lula's victory margin was narrow, 51.9%. Okay, here is some fact that is given regarding the election. Now come over here. Given Mr. Bolsonaro's disaster management of COVID-19 crisis, his constant attack on democratic institutions and basic science, his habit of appointing unqualified sycophants, okay, as ministers, and an almost continuous stream of scandals, polls and pundits alike had just a few. What happened during the pandemic time? He was, instead of focusing on the COVID-19 crisis, there was a constant attack on the democratic institutions, and the people which the people whom he appointed was from the military generals, and some kind of scandals were happened. So that was not the good time during the pandemic. Now the next para, the first round over here. The first round of the election, which took place October 2. The first round of the election, which took place October 2, revealed deep reservoir of conservatism in Brazil, as well as very effective reactionary coalition. What happened? There was an election on October 2 and people seen there was a conservatism in Brazil and the very effective reactionary coalition. Not only did Mr. Bolsonaro do better than predicted, but his right-wing alliance also outperformed all the other parties. So what is important over here, that here a rapidly growing demographic that now accounts for a third of the Brazil, जो रैपिडली ग्रो कर रही है डेमोग्राफी, और जो कि एक ब्राज़ील का 1/3 है, वो फेवर कर रही है ट्रेडिशनल फैमिली वैल्यूज़ विच इंक्लूड अपोजिंग गे मैरिज एंड एबॉर्शन, and Bolsonaro also a strong the conservatism is rooted in Mr. Bolsonaro alliance. Okay, and in October 2, what happens on October 2, there was we have seen a more conservatism in Brazil. So in this para, we are just watching that the people are nowadays growing population of the Brazil. They are 1/3 of that population. They are demanding and favoring the traditional family values. Okay, now come to this para. In Bolsonaro, a reactionary mode of politics, but it was also reactionary in the sense of a concerted efforts to roll back social achievements of the previous PT government, and it was also reactionary that they rolling back the various social achievements of the previous government, agreeing with the independence of liberal institutions, judiciary and bureaucracy, and they unleashes the police forces and allied militias in fighting criminality, and free rein to the sectoral interests such as the agro-business and its anti-environmental agenda. And what happens there, earlier government did better in many of the areas, but now in Bolsonaro government it's so much reactionary, and he did not do well for the environment and favoring the various businesses and favoring his interest. Now, the reactionary mode of politics was in full display during the campaign. His reactionary mode we have seen in the campaign of the election, there was an escalation of political violence was there, most of it fueled by Mr. Bolsonaro supporters. Okay, so all this thing like political violence and many of the reactionary things done by the Mr. Bolsonaro supporters. Social media disinformation reached new heights, with WhatsApp groups spewing an endless stream of conspiracy theories and vitriol, including claims that Mr. Lula had a pact with Satan to close churches if he came to power. And there were so many rumors from the social media side, and these social medias are supporting the Mr. Giles Monaro, and they are misutilizing the various platforms like WhatsApp, and they spreading the rumors like if Lula's come to power, then he will close the churches. Okay, then these are some wrong things spreaded by his supporters. Evangelical preachers openly campaigned for Mr. Bolsonaro militias that have ties to Mr. Bolsonaro. The federal police and the right-wing businesses were all mobilized and attack. So what happens? Gelson Bolsonaro supporters, they wrongfully spreading the wrong messages, and they targeting the right-wing people, their oppositors. So this is the basic thing in this particular para. Now come over here. Mr. Lula's victory was initially met by protest from Mr. Bolsonaro supporters and called for the military to intervene. And when Mr. Lula won, there was a protest from the Bolsonaro supporters, and they warned that military should come to power. But Brazil's institutions have held fast, and most of the Mr. Bolsonaro political allies have publicly accepted the outcome. But the allies of the Mr. Bolsonaro, they accepted whatever the outcome may be, the victory of Mr. Lula. Mr. Lula's return to power, his presidency begins on January 1, bodes well for democracy, and it is good for the democracy. Mr. Lula's come to power is good for the democracy. With Mr. Bolsonaro gone, the public sphere will now be spared his constant like hate speech and all, and may actually get back to debates about social policies, the economy, and protecting the Amazon. What happens? Now the James Monaro government has gone. Now the scenario may be come, and the must come. Then there should be the discussion for the social policies, economy, and protecting the Amazon in the Lula's government. Despite an adverse economic environment and a Congress and Senate that have a strong representation of extreme right-wing group, Mr. Lula will have a lot of room for maneuver. So this is a very good thing in Lula's government. To begin with, he will be able to build back some of the impressive bureaucratic capacity that was built in the earlier PT period but subverted by Mr. Bolsonaro. So he wanted such kind of environment in his time. There was an impressive bureaucratic, and but what happens when Mr. Bolsonaro came, he just ruined all that. This will be especially critical in reinvigorating the capacity of the health and social welfare bureaucracies as well as the Environmental Protection Agency. Now it is very critical that we should reinvigorate the capacity of the health and social welfare bureaucracy and Environmental Protection Agency. Now come to this para. Ironically, Mr. Lula will also be able to capitalize on some of Mr. Bolsonaro's own initiative. And ironically, what happens? Mr. Lula want to capitalize on Bolsonaro's own initiative. Let's discuss further. Though ideologically hostile to state welfare, maybe it will be hostile to the state welfare, the COVID-19 pandemic forced Mr. Bolsonaro's hand as he ended up injecting more cash into Brazil's cash transfer program. What he did, Mr. Jair Bolsonaro, he ended up injecting the more cash into the Brazil's cash transfer program. Mr. Lula's signature achievement in his previous 2 terms in office, Mr. Lula will now be able to build it out again. As conservative as Brazil is, there is, as in India, broad-based support for expanding. Must be a broad-based support for the expanding welfare measures. The difference is that while Mr. Bolsonaro to try to patronalize welfare, that is create direct ties between himself and beneficiary. And what he did, like James Bolsonaro, he tried to patrimonialize the welfare, so that that is create the direct ties between himself and beneficiary. A PD government will push to link welfare to basic social rights and possibly even broader the criteria of inclusion. So this is a very good thing in Mr. Lula's government, that they want the inclusion and they want the social rights, and they want to link the welfare to the basic social rights. Now, come to this point. An institution man. So, what does this all mean? First, this is the most decisive reversal of the great wave that I have called an age of reaction in Brazil. A wave that has a reactionary regimes come to power across a range of electoral democracy, including the Western Europe. And in very of the example we have seen, like in Western Europe, Italy, Eastern Europe, United States, Trump time, India, and Philippines. Okay. As in all these regimes, Mr. Bolsonaro weaponized the classic conservative call to reinvigorate church, family, and nation. But all in that, Mr. Bolsonaro, he is just taking a weaponized attack, a weaponized thing. Like this would be a conservative recall, and this would be a church, family, nation into a sense of existential cultural threat from various others, including the assorted communists, secularists, human rights activists, and immigrants, or in the case of India and Brazil, religious or racial groups. And Mr. Bolsonaro, for him, he is taking the profit of the various of the thing to weaponize the many of the things, and focusing on the church, family, and nation. They want to create a kind of the cultural thread, a reactionary policies, pressurizing the people, and various of the things we have seen in various of the country like India, Brazil, and all. So this is the basic thing regarding we are discussing over Mr. Bolsonaro. So read this para very carefully. This is a very important one. Second, Mr. Lula's victory reverses the growing narrative that the checks and balances liberal institution of democracy are ineffective and elite democracy and should be replaced by the direct support of the great leader. What Mr. Lula's victory reverse ये बताती है कि the checks and balances that the checks एंड बैलेंसेस लिबरल इंस्टीट्यूशन डेमोक्रेसी आर अभी इन इफेक्टिव है, और हमें ज़रूरत है कि हम इसको रिप्लेस किया जाए, इनको डायरेक्ट सपोर्ट किया जाए ग्रेट लीडर से. फॉर ऑल हिज पर्सनल पॉपुलैरिटी एंड कैरिस्मा, मिस्टर लूला हैज़ ऑलवेज बीन इंस्टीट्यूशन मैन, first as a union leader, then as a builder of the party, then has a strong internal democratic culture, and finally a president who has been steadfast in his support for democratic norms and practices. Mr. Lula wants to focus more on the democratic norms and practices. Third, what the PT's return to power demonstrate is the possibility, even in a world of increasing precarity and inequality, of building a broad coalition of the poor and progressive elements of the middle class. Right-wing populists have long derided issues that they want the gender rights, fighting climate change, cultural pluralism, racial inclusion, and the foibles of politically correct cultural elite. Mr. Lula's social base and his track records know that these are and must be universal concern, and the pursuit of the social justice and called equality begins with a commitment to inclusive democracy. So in whole this article, what we have read, that there is so much challenges in the Brazil's democracy, and there is a transition of the political party, and there is a transition of the government from Jair Bolsonaro and Mr. Lula's government, and there is a comparison what happened earlier during the Lula's time, and then Jair Bolsonaro's time, and now the government of the Lula, and what are the challenges they are facing, and what the various reforms they are going to take. So this is the whole discussion for today. Thank you and have a nice day.